Today I have the Stone mix breakdown. So this video will probably be pretty lengthy because I want to do a proper mix breakdown, and because this track was mixed in a hybrid fashion, so I've used hardware and plugins, and I want to explain every single step of it. I want to do this because this track is pretty special to me. It embodies my ideas about mixing. For a really long time I was chasing the perfect mix, the mix that sounded really technical, the mix that didn't have any imperfections. Over the time I've changed that. And with this mix, I really think that I can showcase what mixing is for me, and that's emotion, that's translating the artist's vision to the song. For me, in this stage of my career, I think that for a song, emotions are more important than having the perfect mix. And that's why I really love what I did with this mix. Okay, so like I've mentioned in the beginning, this track was mixed hybrid. I've used all my analog gear and also I've used plugins. And I want to explain for a bit the audio routing. I will be really short about it, but you should know just a bit about how the audio flows in the studio. The audio from Studio One is going out via this Ferrofish Pool 16 A to D and D to A converter. This helps me to do the summing out of the box. This is a 16 channel A to D, D to A converter. This is connected to the Fireface UFX Plus via ADAT. Every input and output is shown into my Studio One session, and it looks something like this. As you can see, I have a few stems. I have the drum stem, percussion stem, bass stem, music 2 stem, vocal stem, and FX stem. This is my usual setup, and you can see all those stems going out to the Ferrofish right here on the basses section. Because the session is pretty small, as you can see, I only have the MP3 beat and a few vocal tracks. I usually don't use summing to mix this sort of track, but with this I wanted to break the rules because I wanted a lot of grit, a lot of saturation, a lot of analog goodness. I want it to be really dirty, I want it to be really in your face, and that's why I've used the summing mixer even though I have just the MP3 beat. Now let me show you what I have in my rack. So from the Ferrofish Pool 16 converter, the audio goes out to this Tegeler Audio tube summing mixer. As you can see, now the track is playing and I'm not hitting it that hard, but I wanted the grit, the saturation from those tubes. I really like how it makes the low end a bit more softer. From the summing mixer, the track goes out to the Tegeler Audio VariTube compressor, and I'm not doing that much compression. I'm just touching it with 1 dB of gain reduction. I have the sidechain on, the slow attack, fast release, and I'm using it mostly for the tone. So the audio goes out from the summing mixer into the VariTube compressor. From the VariTube compressor, we are going into the creme. With the creme, I'm doing my usual stuff, adding some low end at 100, adding some top end at 16K, and doing some light compression with the VCA type compressor. This is a SSL type compressor. The sidechain again at 120 because I really want that low end to hit really hard. A touch of compression between 1 and 2 dB of gain reduction, so nothing too crazy. Now the audio from the creme is going into the Fireface again, and it's coming into Studio One on this print track, and I have the input set up just like that. I'm monitoring via this track. If you want a more extensive video on how I use summing and the exact setup, the exact sound that I get from it, just let me know in the comment section below and I will do a video on it in the future. So as you can see, the setup for the track is a bit more complex than just mixing in the box, but I think that comes with working with analog. In my opinion, it's not that important if you're mixing analog, if you're mixing in the box, or if you're mixing hybrid. In the end, the results that you're getting are pretty amazing. That's everything that matters. The setup that I have with the Ferrofish, with the summing mixer, the VariTube compressor and the creme is hardwired. So when I want to use the summing mixer, I have to go through the entire chain. I can bypass it because when I feel that I need that analog saturation, I go all in. In my right side of the rack, I have the Better Maker compressor, a Pultec Style EQ from West Audio, and two Mimas again from West Audio. These have digital control, so you will see them inside the DAW as a plugin, and I will not talk that much about this section of the rack because you will see it on the screen. Now that I have that out of the way, let's do the proper mix breakdown and let's see what I have in the box. Now we're inside Studio One. Let's break down the session really quick. As you can see, the beat goes out to the drum bass, that goes out to the summing mixer. As far as vocal basses goes, I have the usual suspects: ad-lib bass, verse bass, hook bass, and special vox. But on this specific track, I've used only the verse bass and the hook bass. That's the only thing that I've used. You can see on top the gain staging that I did, and because I'm using analog hardware, the gain structure is a bit changed. It's a bit low than usual. Now what I want to do is play with the track and start breaking down the processing. Let's start with this bridge part that's in the intro. It sounds like this. We also have it in the middle of the song. And let's see what I have on this. This bridge has two tracks. This one, that's the lead, and a doubled part that sounds like this. On the double part, I have this meta flanger, default settings with the mix at 30%. Next, I have a dynamic EQ dealing with the top end because it was a bit too much for me. This intro bridge goes out into this verse, and I will break down the processing on that in a moment. Next, we have the hook. On the main hook vocal, I have the Mimas. I'm not doing that much compression on it. 6 to 9 dB of gain reduction, but with an analog compressor, the saturation and the compression is a bit different than using it in the box. It doesn't sound that aggressive. Let me play the track without it. So it adds a bit more body to it. As far as sends goes, on this main hook, Valhalla Vintage Verb with a Gulfos before it because I wanted to de-ess the vocals before hitting the reverb. I didn't want a really bright SC reverb. 7 Heaven Professional with a large and deep hole. And then we have this Echo Boy, the usual rap play that I use most of the time. This is the vocal without the sends. And that's what I have on the main hook vocal. The main hook vocal goes again into the verse bass. Then we have two tracks that sounds like this. So they are basically harmonies, and I really loved how they sound, so I wanted to make them really special. This is the first one. This one, the most important one for me, so I've decided to compress it with the Better Maker compressor just to bring them really up front. Then we have a C4 with my regular preset, the controller one, and a doubler to make it even wider. This is what the doubler does. As far as sends, I have the same reverb, but I have automated a ping pong delay on this last word. And I have the Echo Boy. After the Echo Boy, a really long reverb, but mixed pretty low, so it's not that obvious. And I'm gluing everything together, the Echo Boy, the Valhalla Vintage Verb, with this Opticom compressor. To add even more character. This one is a lower harmony and it sounds like this. It has multiple vocal takes, that's how Sanito loves to work, and I really appreciate when I get tracks like this. On the low harmonies I have Ozone Imager. Spreading the vocals even further to the sides, corrective EQ and the de-esser digging in pretty deep. This is how they sound together. And this is how the hook sounds with the main, the high harmonies and the low harmonies. Pretty cool if you ask me. And I have some pretty intensive processing on this last one. RVox doing just the gating, degrader, adding a lot of saturation and some filtering the top end. C4, controller, preset, de-esser. Again C4, this time with some drastic settings. Shaper box with the pan module on, moving from left to right, and a CLA two-way compressor. Not doing that much compression. And this is the hook processing. When it comes to automation on the hook, not that much automation on the actual hook. The double tracks and the harmonies go out to this hook bus, and on this hook bus I have Suit. The track was mixed before I had Suit version 2. And since the tracks are doubles, not the main lead, I can dig pretty deep with Suit. Then we have this BX console doing just 1 dB at 3K cutting and removing some 320 in the lower mids. That's all I did. All these buses are going out to this main vocal bus that I will show you the processing. Now let's move to the verse. This is verse 1. This is probably my favorite part because I'm really proud of those harmonies. On the main verse, Mimas again. Herz so frost, was willst du von mir? Denkst du echt, ich such nach dir? Gib ein Fick auf das, was mich verletzt hat, es trifft mich. Making the vocals really upfront. Corrective EQ. Es trifft mich nicht, aber try dich in. Removing some low end and some lower mids. De-esser. C1 compressor, close to 9K, and this is what I'm removing with it. That really harsh sibilance in the top end. Last in the chain, C4. You can get this preset for free from our website, go check it out.
Was willst du von mir? Denkst du echt, ich such nach dir? Gib ein Fick auf das, was mich verlässt hat.
When it comes to the sends, we have a different reverb. That's a thing that I like to do, changing the reverb from the hook to the verse, so the hook sounds bigger, wider, and the verse sounds a bit more close, more upfront, with not that much reverb. And I like to use two reverbs, so we have a common ground from the hook to the verse, making the transition a bit more smoother. In this case, from the hook to the verse, I've kept this whole 7 Heaven. That's on both the verse and the hook. Then we have this Valhalla vintage verb with a really short reverb.
Gib ein Fick auf das, was mich verlässt hat. Es trifft mich nicht, aber ride ich in einem Benchstruck. Es gibt nichts, was mich stoppt, was mich hält, ja. Hol mir, was ich will und ich mache es einfach selbst, ja. Down, Herz so froze.
A delayed throw that's automated, end of the phrases.
Herz aus Stone, Herz so froze. Was willst du von mir? Denkst du echt, ich such?
Another automation, it's on the second verse.
Monaten denk ich mir, oh, ich lebe in einem Movie. Jeden Tag recorden, doch es wird mir niemals zu viel. Baby, es tut mir leid, denn du siehst leider nicht, was ich sehe. Vertraue nur mir selbst.
So a different tone, a much shorter delay. And last, I have this primal tap.
Und keine Bitches. Baby, ja, du weißt, ich bin hier. Habe keine Zeit zu verlieren. Baby, nein, ich geh nicht weg. Sie sehen ja, sie haben mich unterschätzt. Herz aus Stone. Herz aus Stone, bin
And that's the processing on the verse main. And the verse main goes out to the hook. Now let me break down my favorite part of the song, the harmonies on the verse.
Such nach dir, gib ein Fick auf das, was mich verlässt hat. Es trifft mich nicht, aber ride ich in einem Benchstruck. Es gibt nichts, was mich stoppt.
Let me bypass the processing. This is the starting point.
Such nach dir, gib ein Fick auf das, was mich verlässt hat. Es trifft mich nicht, aber ride ich in einem Benchstruck. Es trifft mich nicht.
First in the chain, R-Vox, just for gating, C4. I wanted the harmonies to have a different tone than the lead, so I'm boosting the mids instead of cutting and controlling them. A DSR, and the secret to this sound is adding a reverb as an insert. Really short, and it's gated.
Es trifft mich nicht.
So you get that big space around the vocals, but you don't get the tail. And that's pretty important when you want big ad-libs, but with an impact. Next we have CLA2A.
Es trifft mich nicht.
Removing some of the lower mids with FabFilter Pro Q3. Stereo Delta, spreading the harmonies. And last in the chain, another C4. This time controlling some of those lower mids frequencies.
Es trifft mich nicht. Es gibt nichts.
And using the same reverb as in the hook. I love how the main part sounds with the harmonies. Really, really nice. Then we have the ad-libs. On the ad-libs, I like them distorted when I work with Sanito. And my go-to for hit sound is degrader. A C4, another C4, CLA2A, corrective EQ, Valhalla vintage verb as an insert, plus some reverb and a delayed throw. Now let's move to the processing done on the vocal bus. The vocal bus goes out to the vocal stems, that goes out into the summy mixer, into the compressor, into the creme, and back into Studio One on this track. This track is the print track. Let's bypass everything and see how the vocals sound.
Seit Monaten denk ich mir, oh, ich lebe in einem Movie. Jeden Tag recorden, doch es wird mir niemals zu viel. Baby, es tut mir
First in the chain, a corrective EQ, but more subtle than usual.
Tut mir leid, denn du siehst leider nicht, was ich sehe. Meiner Fam, Baby, hat ich bin hier, habe keine Zeit.
Suit.
Seit Monaten denke ich mir, oh,
More subtle this time. C4 again with the same preset.
ich lebe in einem Movie. Jeden Tag recorden, doch es wird mir niemals zu viel. Baby, es tut mir leid.
And for my EQ, I'm using the West Audio Prometheus. This is a full textile EQ. It really helps the vocal to be more upfront and come to life because I'm also using the saturation, the THD. And this is how the vocal sound without the Prometheus. And this is with it. As you can see, I'm adding 4 dB at 10K, cutting some top end at 20K, and adding some 250 just to add a bit more body to the vocals. Next, Acon Digital Denoise. I use this sometime when I mix analog, and I do it because it's really transparent, just to remove the hiss. For example, I used the MIMAs right in the beginning, and with all the processing, the noise from the MIMAs coming out. Analog noise is not a big issue for me. Inflator, adding even more saturation. Last in the chain is the click. I use this when I have mouth clicks or when I have compressor artifacts with really sharp transients. Those are a bit distracting for me, so that's why I use it. And this is what I'm removing. So you can hear just small clicks. One thing that I like to do, and this is in all my templates, all the effects, reverbs, delays are going out to a single bus. And I do it because I want to control that bus with EQ, with compression, with sidechain compression, like in this case. I'm controlling some mids and removing some low end. Then I have this smart comp doing some sidechain ducking. I am using the vocals as an input, so I'm compressing the bus when the vocals are playing. That way I am keeping the vocals up front and not burying them with a lot of effects, even though I have a lot of effects. Now I want to talk about this section right here because I think the second verse is pretty nice too. It sounds like this.
Seit Monaten denke ich mir, oh, ich lebe in einem Movie. Jeden Tag recorden, doch es wird mir niemals zu viel. Baby, es tut mir leid, denn du siehst leider nicht, was ich sehe. Vertraue nur mir selbst, meiner Fam und keinen Bitches. Baby, ja, du weißt, ich bin hier. Habe keine Zeit zu verlieren. Baby, nein, ich geh nicht weg. Sie sehen, ja, sie haben mich unterschätzt. Herz aus Stone.
Okay, so I have a few cool things here that I want to show you. One of those cool things is this beat transition. So when Sanito hits those really nice high notes, I wanted to bring the spotlight on them. One way to do it is to add some processing on those notes, but another way to do it is to process the beat, to do some filtering, to break the beat. In this case, I've used Shaper Box doing some filtering. And I think that really lifted up that section of the song. Next, this break right here, I really like how it sounds. So on this track right here, you can see it's just a duplicated track that I did some different processing, and I have a reversed reverb and a tape stop. The tape stop is done with this plugin. I have videos on that. It's automated. With the beat, it really adds a nice impact. The tape stop is exactly on the beat break, and that's pretty cool. On the outro, I can't remember exactly, but I think I have a part from somewhere, because I really like to do this sometimes. So that wasn't there when I received the song. But I really like to add these personal touches for every single mix that I do. And this is the entire track. I've really enjoyed breaking down this mix. It's one of my favorite mixes that I did in the past couple of months. I really like the emotion of the track. I really think that the perfect mix is not something that I want to chase. I really think that emotion is more important than being technically correct. The artist's vision is more important than my vision. So this was my mix breakdown. I hope that you enjoy it. If you did, please subscribe, hit that like button. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram. Thanks for all the support, and see you guys really soon.
Herz aus Stone, Herz aus Stone, Herz aus Stone, bin in meiner Base. Herz aus Stone, Herz aus Stone, Herz aus Stone, es ist wieder late. Herz aus Stone.